Hi everyone, Michael Cavacini here, and today I'm going to show you The Art of Pulp Horror. This is edited by Stephen Jones. If you haven't seen it, I just interviewed Stephen Jones recently and I uploaded the video, so check that out. I also have two other videos of his other Art of Horror books. One is The Art of Horror Movies and the other one is The Art of Horror. So this is the third book, The Art of Pulp Horror. So we're going to take a look at this one today. If you want to buy this book, down below is a link for you to buy it on Amazon. Also, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and visit me at michaelcavacini.com for more great content like this. So let's crack this open and take a look at what's inside. As you can see, it's a hardback book. It has a textured fabric cover, so that's a nice feature. It is by Applause Books, and you can get it on Amazon for a decent price. So here you are, this remarkable companion to the award-winning The Art of Horror and The Art of Horror movies. From the same creative team behind those acclaimed illustrated volumes, it looks at the sexy, sleazy, and sensational subject matter in books, magazines, comics, and movies that has helped to shape modern horror. Here's more information about it. You can see there's a quote from Neil Gaiman. So the full price for this book is $40, but you can definitely pay less than that if you buy it on Amazon. So click that link below and see what the current price is. And let's see what's inside. So I'll open up this book. It's got a nice inside cover there. By the way, when I interviewed Stephen Jones, he was telling me that a lot of the stuff in these books, these are materials that he has, that he scanned and put into these books. So, I mean, this is a lot of original content, that he has on his shelves, that he has archived through these books. It's very cool, real labor of love on his part. So you can see that the foreword here is from Robert Silverberg, introduction by Stephen Jones. The first chapter is Penny Dreadfuls, this week's thrill-packed yarn. Then Pre-Code Horrors, the Horror Monster Show. The Shudder Pulps, Stories That Thrill and Chill. Poverty Row, Horror Was Never So Fascinating. Seduction of the Innocent, Strangest Tales of Fear and Terror. Drive-In Delinquents, Fiendish, Fantastic, Frightening. Pulp Fiction, The Bizarre, The Frightening, The Gruesome. Exploitation Explosion, Horror Beyond Belief. Boom and Bust, Something Bad Is Coming. So this book is over 256 pages, so you're getting a lot of content here. And just like the other two Art of Horror books, the layout is wonderful. The page quality is really nice and thick. It has a semi-gloss finish to it. There's just a lot of great stuff here. And I did ask Stephen when I interviewed him, have you considered doing ebooks of these volumes? And he said that the file size would be so huge, and it just wouldn't lend itself to that medium. And I totally understand. I mean, these are coffee table books, and coffee table books that are translated to an ebook format. It's really hard to pull it off, because how do you display this and then also make sure the text is legible and easy to read? Because you don't have to just zoom in, zoom out the whole time. That's just kind of not a pleasurable reading experience. The thing that's really nice about this book and the other two books is that you can either crack it open and just see where you land and just start reading and looking and admiring what it is you're seeing, or you can go cover to cover. You can definitely do that if that's something that's the way you prefer to read. You can see there's a lot of text. Of course, it's beautiful illustrations and posters and so much wonderful stuff to enjoy here. If you're a horror aficionado like myself. In my interview with Stephen Jones, if you check that out, we got to talk about Clive Barker. We talked, because he worked with Clive Barker on doing publicity for Hellraiser 1, 2, and 3. He also worked on Nightbreed. We talked about Stephen King. Of course, these books, other books that he's got, because he's contributed to many, many books, won numerous literary awards. Really fascinating guy. And actually, right before I interviewed him, I told him right after that interview, I was going to be interviewing Thomas B. Sawyer, the head writer of Murder, She Wrote. And Stephen told me about his love for Murder, She Wrote. So go figure. This horror guy loves Murder, She Wrote, just like me. And if you want to check out my interview with Thomas B. Sawyer, that's also on my YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out. It was a great discussion. Tom not only was the head writer for Murder, She Wrote, but he worked for Stan Lee. So if you're into art and illustration, he was an illustrator for Stan Lee at Marvel back in the day before everything got really hot and popular. So that is a really fascinating discussion. I encourage you to check that out. But look at this artwork. I mean, it's just beautifully done. The detail is just incredible. And I was asking Stephen in my interview, like, how much work must go into this? I mean, he lays all this out. Obviously, each chapter is written by a contributor. Thank God, right? Imagine if he had to write all these himself. And then he's just really managing the whole project, making sure it's as seamless as can be, just weaving it together. And it's when you're tackling a topic as broad as pulp horror, it can be a challenge to think, well, how do you make this a good read for people who are just jumping in just for 5-minute bits of info, as well as for people who are going to read this kind of like long form, right? They want to sit down for an hour or more and read. How do you make it so the flow is logical and satisfying? That's a tough thing to pull off, but he did it. He did a great job. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, one of my all-time favorites. I just love that story. I also love the musical, Jekyll and Hyde. Fantastic music, just really, really good. And I see lots of parallels between horror and theater, because musicals and all that, it's very theatrical, it's very dramatic, it's very over the top, right? With just crazy outfits and all that stuff. So there's an obvious connection between that and horror. Maybe not necessarily all the thrills and chills you get from horror, but still the presentation is definitely similar. Boris Karloff. Drive-in delinquents. This makes me think of Joe Bob. Joe Bob Briggs. And the last drive-in, Monster Vision, all that good stuff. I met Joe Bob. I actually got to interview Joe Bob. Visit my website, michaelcavacini.com. Search for Joe Bob Briggs. You'll find my interview with Joe Bob. Joe Bob is so nice. Really, really cool guy. It was just a pleasure to speak with him. I met him also at was it NJ HorrorCon a few years back. And people told me I actually look like Joe Bob. So I thought that was interesting. I should probably dress up as Joe Bob for Halloween. Look at this. Very cool, man. In the name of Satan, I place a curse upon you. There's the artwork, and including the Japanese artwork, is just really fascinating stuff. I was just looking, I just did a video the other day of a Sean Connery tribute magazine from MI6 Confidential. Check that out. And there were a bunch of Japanese James Bond movie posters. Those are really interesting to see as well. I don't know, Japan is just one of those places that fascinates me. I've never been, but I've heard it's amazing. I'm also a big Kiss fan, and Kiss has a huge following in Japan. And so that's part of the allure for me when it comes to Japan, is the Kiss connection, and just the fact that the culture there is so radically different from the United States. So I hope to make it there someday. Have you been to Japan? If so, comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Anything you recommend, cities that you think I should visit. Always happy to hear from those of you guys who are tuning in and checking this out. And I hope that this inside look at this book is really helpful. Look at this. Holy cow. The coloring is just insane. And look at the eyes. Man, this is just a remarkable piece of work. Maniac. Fantastic movie. I love movies like that, kind of like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, just where it really kind of follows just the mental unraveling of a character, and you just kind of see how they just totally fall apart. Christopher Lee, fantastic actor. I actually don't mind Frank Langella's take on Dracula. I thought that was enjoyable in its own right. Monster Club was kind of a silly but fun movie. Vincent Price. Salem's Lot, I've never seen it. I've never actually read it either, but I hope to do so. Here we are, Clive Barker. I love Clive Barker. He, like I said, Stephen and I spoke extensively about Clive Barker, and I mean, his writing is just phenomenal. It's just, he is the most unrestrained horror writer I've ever read. I mean, the guy doesn't hold back at all. Stephen King's It. Goosebumps. Boy, I grew up in the 90s, so Goosebumps were a big deal. I've met R.L. Stine a few times. Really nice guy. He's actually hilarious. He wanted to get into comedy, and somehow he wound up writing Goosebumps, and that is what he became famous for. So he's actually funnier than he is scary. So this is just, he just kind of fell into this, and obviously he's, Fear Street, Goosebumps, I mean, he's had a hell of a career. Actually, for a while there, I thought R.L. Stine wasn't even real. I thought it was like Betty Crocker. And then when I met him, I was like, oh, you are a real human being. How about that? But those books were, I used to love buying them. All right, so like I said, there's a lot of content. I think it's the last page. And contributor bios. So it just gives you a little info about all the people who contributed to this book. The index, which, I mean, this is like an endless index. There you have it. So that is 256 pages. 256 pages of horror content. Check that out. Really nice. So that is The Art of Pulp Horror. Just another fantastic edition. Like I said, there's 3 of these books. There's The Art of Horror, The Art of Horror Movies, and The Art of Pulp Horror. Stephen had told me that he actually wanted to have all of this be like one big mega book, but the publisher said, no, that's not going to work. So if you want to enjoy all of it, you have to buy all 3. But I mean, these are pretty substantial books, like I said, in size. So I do recommend buying all 3. Check out my other videos for The Art of Horror and The Art of Horror Movies. Hope you enjoyed this inside look at The Art of Pulp Horror. Like I said, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, visit me at michaelcavacini.com, and have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye.